Hello, hello, test check 1, 2. How's it sounding? Hello, hello, test check. All right, let's do this thing. Get this going like that. Hello, there I am. Welcome to yet another Wednesday afternoon song feedback stream. My name is Zaak Kerstetter. I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer, and that's what we do here on Wednesdays. Is you guys are going to send me tracks. You can send me songs that you are working on, and I will try my best to give you my honest feedback on them. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paste the spreadsheet into the chat, and then I'm going to pin it up to the top of the chat. So that if you would like to send me a song, the way you do so is you click on the link pinned up the top of the chat. That'll take you to the spreadsheet, and then in the spreadsheet you're just going to send me the link, put in your YouTube name, put any other comments, things you want to toss in there, and I will get to them in the order that I receive them. Before we start doing all that though, a couple things. Number one, if you are enjoying the content, if you're enjoying the stream, the feedback, any of it, feel free to hit the like button. Any of that kind of stuff is all greatly appreciated. On top of that, there are some general guidelines. They're not quite rules, they're more guidelines for submitting a song. So the very first thing is original tracks only. So no remixes, nothing like that. Mostly just because of copyright stuff. The YouTube algorithm is very strict on copyright things. So if you remix somebody's track and then it gets played on here, and then I can get a copyright strike, and it's really annoying, and I don't know what to deal with it. Number two is going to be ideally works in progress only. So it doesn't have to be work in progress. Hey, after party, how's it going? It doesn't have to be after work in progress, but that is ideal, number one, because that way you can actually go back and change things based off the feedback I've gotten. If it's already been released, you're probably not going to go back and change it. And number two, also copyright. I've had people who have been sharing tracks they've already released and they're out on Spotify or whatever, or on YouTube, and then I get copyright warnings about it. So prefer to not have to do that. On top of that, all genres, all styles, all experience levels, all skill levels are welcome here. So if this is your very first song, awesome, I want to hear it. If this is your 500th song, I still want to hear it. Everybody's welcome. Doesn't matter what kind of music you make. If you make electronic music, great. If you make other kind of music, I'm here for it. I want to hear what you got, and I want to hear, I want to hear your soul through your music. So share with me whatever you got that you are the most excited about. Another thing that I do like to mention is that if you are going to be sharing a song for feedback, it is preferred that you also give other people feedback. So you help each other out, and that way we can all kind of like learn together, grow together as a community, as opposed to me just talking into the camera the whole time and you guys just listening. So it is highly encouraged, but not required, that you give each other feedback. And that way we all help each other out. On top of that, songs will be reviewed in a first come, first served basis. So put your song on the list, and then I'll go through top to bottom through the list. On top of that, if you have more than one song that you would like feedback on, wait until the end of the stream to send me the second song. That way make sure everybody gets a chance, and usually by the time the end of the stream rolls around, usually about an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes into the stream, usually I've caught up and gotten through all of the songs, and you will most likely be able to send me a second song, but don't send me a second song until we've gotten through everything else. On top of that, I would also like to mention that all of these streams get uploaded to the channel. So if you have a song that you want feedback on and you can't make it live to the actual stream itself, you are more than welcome to send me the song early. It's always the same spreadsheet, so you can just pop your song in there early, and then I will listen to it during the stream, and then you can watch the stream whenever you want, which is really fantastic. just know that all of the streams, they're not on the main videos page of the channel. They're on the playlist page under the stream playlist page. So yeah, that's all that kind of stuff. Cool. And then lastly, all of the feedback that I do here is free. I do this for fun. I really enjoy doing it. It's one of my favorite things to do all week. So, you know, you don't feel like you have to pay anything for this. That's just what it is. However, if you would like to help support the channel, you can, like I said, hit the like button. You can subscribe if you're not already. You can help, you know, watch all the videos, feed the algorithm, whatever you need to do. All that stuff is a great free way for you to support the channel. On top of that, if you want to support the channel financially, you can do a super chat in the little chat guy. You can also join the Patreon, where I do extra live streams and other stuff over there. So you can check all that out on the Patreon. Should be linked below somewhere. So with that out of the way, that's all of the pre-game stuff, all the pre-stream stuff. We could start diving into these songs. However, there are no songs in the spreadsheet yet. I see there's somebody in there poking around the spreadsheet, but they haven't pasted it yet. So hopefully there'll be a song in there very shortly, and then we'll dive into it. Looks like After Party says he's got 2 tracks for review, 1 for drum mixing, and 1 is the one from last week. Cool. Well, I'm excited to hear both. Let me fix this microphone situation. Let me fix this a little bit more. This is gonna bother me. I think it should be okay. Yeah, go ahead and toss one in there, and we will get right into it. Hopefully you guys are having a good week, being really productive, making some music. Man, I'm tired. I have not been sleeping so well. Cool, we got our first track from After Party, so we'll go ahead and dive right into it. There's that. And as always, with the first song of the week, do a little sound check. So let me know if it sounds too quiet, too loud, somewhere in between, all that kind of stuff. And is the first one the one you want drum feedback? Drum mix. I can tell by the name. Never mind. Nice. I think it sounds really good. I think overall the mix is sounding pretty polished to me. You're kind of nailing this kind of like indie rock kind of sound. Um, and I think I've got a few minor critiques here on the mix a little bit. But overall, I think you should be very proud of this mix. I think it sounds really solid. So the couple main things that I'm noticing, and I'm going to try to focus primarily on the drums here. Also, in case anybody else is just joining us, if you'd like to send in a track, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat, and that's how you send me your song. Overall, drums sound pretty good. Nothing feels like way too quiet or way too loud. I actually think a lot of your kind of like background drums, the kind of like crash cymbals and things like that, are like pretty spot on. I think if it were up to me, the two changes I would make are maybe a hair bit less volume on the snare and a tiny bit more volume on the kick. I feel like the kick is getting lost in the mix a little bit. Like I can tell where it is, but I kind of have to listen for it. So I think a little bit more volume on the kick, and I think the snare sticks out to me, but only just barely. Yeah, I think the snare goes down by like 1.5, maybe 2 decibels. And the kick goes up by maybe like, I don't know, 2 decibels, perhaps. I'm just guessing there. Yeah, but I think the snare itself sounds fantastic. It's a really nice sounding snare. So really a good job in recording that. And then I think the other kind of big thing here that I think will actually help the drums kind of line up a bit more is a bit more power on those vocals, a bit more volume on the vocals. That way it'll kind of be like the main focus will be the vocals, which is what you want when they're happening, and then the guitar parts, and then kind of like the drum and the bass kind of like tied with each other in terms of like the hierarchy of sounds here. And right now it feels a little bit too much like the vocals and the guitars are a little bit too close to each other. So if you bring up the vocals a tiny bit, it'll give them a little bit more power, and it'll also kind of, again, set up that hierarchy of sounds that I talk about every time I talk about mixing. But that's basically it, at least when it comes in terms of like the mixing, what's going on here. A little tiny bit more vocals, a little tiny bit more kick, a little bit less snare. Other than that, I think that shaker could go down a tiny bit. It sounds like a shaker, whatever that sound is. It's not a shaker, it's the tambourine-ish kind of sound. And like here, everything sounds really good, but those vocals are getting caught up in kind of the whirlwind of all the other sounds. So if you bump those vocals, I think this section will sound really good. Yeah, tambourine. I got it eventually. But yeah, that's basically it. I think everything else sounds really good here. It sounds really clean. The mix sounds really solid. It has this nice kind of like airy vocal layer without being like too over the top on some of those reverbs. Maybe a little bit more volume on the guitar if you want that to hit a little harder. Yeah, that's basically it. That's kind of the only real feedback I have on there is like those little tiny changes on volumes that I think will ultimately lead to very big changes in how the song presents itself. But I think it sounds really clean. It sounds really solid to me. Really nice work. Chat, feel free to let us know if you have any other thoughts, questions, comments, feedback, ideas. Go ahead and toss those in there. On top of that, once again, I'm trying to get better at announcing this between each song. If you would like to share a song, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat. That's how you send me your song, and that's how I will listen to it. Sweet. So next up we got a track from King KY. Nice. This is a really dope beat. I'm feeling pretty good about this. It has like a really nice style to it. I can definitely just imagine somebody rapping over it. Everything flows together really well. All the elements of the song, I feel like, fit together pretty well here. I got a few comments and things you might want to take a look at, but I think overall, sounding really strong. I think rhythmically, the beat has this really nice feel. I like what you did with the snares in there. Really solid work here. So I think the first thing that kind of came to my attention here, your kick has like a little bit of distortion to it. It's like a little bit of like kind of like mid-rangey distortion. And I kind of feel like the rest of the song feels really clean. And so maybe a little bit more of like a cleaner, like it's still a really big kick drum, but maybe one that has a little bit more of a clean kind of sound, maybe a little bit less of that kind of mid-rangey distortion could go really well here. That might be a stylistic choice you're not as into, but if it were me, I think cleaning up the mid-range on that kick or replacing it with a little bit of a more kind of low-endy, punchy kind of kick as opposed to like a mid-rangey, punchy kind of kick might be kind of cool. I think the volume on their hi-hats can go down a tiny bit across the whole track. It just seems a little bit loud to me. But I like the kind of like echoey kind of piano kind of chord sound. I like that a lot. Bass sounds great. All right, and then we got this guy here that to me sounds like a very kind of like synthy version of a steel drum. Melodically, I think I like what's going on here, but this sound itself feels like it doesn't quite fit in with everything else you have going on here. Everything else has this big kind of like, I don't know, like 90s hip hop kind of feel to it. And this has this almost kind of like tropical kind of sound to me. So if it were up to me, I would either replace that sound with a different melody, or keep the melody, replace it with a different synthy sound. Maybe a bit more of like a plucky string kind of synth could be kind of cool. I don't know. There's a bunch of different directions you could go with it. But to me, this sound kind of took me out of the vibe of the rest of the track. Like it felt like it didn't quite fit in there. If you love it, then keep it. But to me, I might take a look into that sound. So the rest of the beat sounds cool. I could also hear like a choir sound on here. That could be kind of cool. It might fit really well with the kind of like echoey piano chords you have going on. This part's cool. I like the little glitchy edits you're doing. And then I really love this little bongo fill you had right here. And I was kind of hoping you would incorporate some bongo, or at least some kind of like bongo-esque drums in the second half. And that might be a really simple, easy way to make the second half feel like it's like kind of evolving from the first half, because that's one of my other big critiques here, is that the second half of the song and the first half of the song sound pretty much identical. Like this sounds pretty much the same as it does over here. So by adding a cool little like bongo rhythm in there, like you use the little bongo fill as a way to lead into it, and then you add like a little bongo percussion background for the second half, and that might be a cool way to spice it up a little bit without having to do like any major changes to your arrangement. But yeah, those I think were my main critiques. Let me listen to it a little more, see if there's anything else. Maybe instead of that sound, maybe have a string, like a violin kind of thing could be kind of cool. That would lean in well into your chords. Yeah, that's basically it. I think a little bit more of an evolution on the second half. Take a look into that melody sound, see if you want to tweak that a little bit. Clean up the kick if you want to, turn on the hi-hats a little bit. Bunch of like really just like minor things, a little kind of minor tweaks here and there that I think will really set this up so that somebody can just come in and rap on it and make it sound really awesome. If you want to do more of the glitchy edits that you do right here, if you want to do more of those other parts of the song, I also wouldn't mind that. I think that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, that's what I'm feeling about this beat. Sounds really cool. Chat, any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Feel free to let us know. And once again, if you are just joining us and you would like to send in a track, click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat. That takes you to the spreadsheet, and that's where I will listen to your song. I'm assuming the third one is also from After Party, so I'm going to skip that one for a second and then jump down to the track from Ambient Cloud. All right, should be good. Next track. Nice. I was really digging that. I can definitely hear a lot of the kind of like IDM influences in here, and I definitely feel like a lot of the synth work felt really solid. Uh, and I think the kind of like cascading layers, like it kept on getting like more and more complex as time went on. I felt like worked really, really well. I honestly only really have like one or two kind of minor pieces of feedback here, and the primarily having to do with your snare and just some of your rhythmic choices, because I think a lot of your synth work is really fantastic. So when you start the song, you have this kind of like clanky sounding snare, which I really love, and I think it works really well here. So this part, fantastic. I'm focusing specifically at the drums. And then you do a little change up, and I'm not as big a fan of the change up. Here. You switch to this almost like rock and roll drum beat with this very kind of like rock and roll sounding snare to me. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with it, but I think that you were leaning in hard one way and it was working for me. And then it switches up here. And then when it switches up, I'm like, this takes me out of the direction you were going. If you feel really confident about it and you really like it, then keep it. But for me, I think leaning harder into this kind of like breakbeaty kind of sample works really well for, it complements all the synth things that are happening. Whereas both the rhythm of the drum beat here and the snare, just the snare sample, to me are a departure from where we're at. Like here I'm on board. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with that, but for me personally, I like the drum beat better before, and so that switch made it feel like a, I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan of it. So I like the idea of leaning more into the IDM-y, glitchy, breakbeaty kind of drum beat as opposed to what you have going on here. But other than that, I love this whole section. And then it kind of goes away, and we go back to just the synth world. Synth world, fantastic. And then you go to the kind of like down-tempo version of what we were hearing before, which rhythmically I'm much more into. But again, the sound of that snare, like it has this very kind of like acoustic rock music feel to me. So I like the idea of going back and maybe replacing that snare sound with, again, a more kind of like glitchier, IDM-ier kind of snare. And I think that will make this whole beat work really well. Love these synths here. I wasn't a huge fan of, there's like a lead synth here that comes in pretty hard on the right side, which I thought like felt like a little bit too far to the right. But then later on, you layer in other stuff that comes to the left and it kind of evens out. But you might want to start that one synth part more towards the middle and then maybe move it out more to the right as the other parts come in. This synth part. Because it's really cool sounding. Also more volume on that one. And now it's more evened out. But yeah, everything else I love. Everything else sounds really cool. Yeah, I think a tighter, more interesting snare here will make this whole second section really just sound awesome. But yeah, that's basically it. It's like mostly I just have an issue with your snare. Here with the timing and the sound of the snare, and here just with the sound of the snare. But yeah, everything else really digging, really fantastic work. I'm super into it. Chat, any other ideas, questions, comments, feedback, things that if this was your track, you might do a little differently? Feel free to let us know. On top of that, if you are just joining us, and looks like we got a few more people joining us now than we did before, if you would like to send in a track, you can click on the link that is pinned up at the top of the chat, and that will take you to the spreadsheet, and that's how you send me your song. So yeah, we're gonna jump back into the second track from After Party, but just so you guys know, if you are sending in a song, if you put it in the spreadsheet right now, you will be immediately after this next one. And if you're enjoying the feedback or the stream at all, you can also feel free to hit the like button. That's super cool of you. Nice. Once again, sounds fantastic. I love this track. I've heard it a couple times on stream, so for those of you who are not aware, mixes, every time I hear it, sounds better and better. I'm going to get into some like really, really detailed nitty gritty stuff this time. I basically think the entire second half of the song is like pretty on point. Sounds really good. If you wanted to give the vocals during that last vocal section even a little bit more volume, I wouldn't mind, but really kind of not super necessary. The two things that I noticed at this time that I think should be taking a look into is during the intro, I know you want those vocals to be kind of in the background a little bit more, but I would give them more volume here. Like, I think they sound cool, but yeah, they just sound so distant and so far away. So give those vocal parts a little bit more volume, and I would definitely appreciate that. The other very minor nitpicky thing I'm going to get into is during the first verse. You have a background vocal layer for the first word, but not the rest of the phrase. And it makes the volume of the phrase sound a little strange to me. The like, I'm is coming in with the main vocal part, and then it sounds like a backing vocal part on top of it. But then the backing vocal part fades away immediately. So the second half of that phrase sounds different. And to me, I wasn't a big fan of that. Let me listen to it one or two more times and see if you guys notice it as well. It also sounds like there's a piano chord that comes in with it too, or something like that. Let me go back here. It might be just be the piano part. The piano part happening at the same time as those vocals, the two of them combine to kind of create one sound. And then as the piano part fades away, the vocals keeps going, and that sounds weird. So maybe less volume on the piano parts when the vocals are happening, and then the vocals are not happening, you can turn the piano parts back up. Those are literally the only two things I think this track really needs some work on. It's the very intro vocals, make them a little bit louder, and then the vocals during the first kind of section here. And figuring out how to either separate the piano and the vocals a little bit or make them play nicely with each other, because right now it sounds a little strange. But yeah, other than that, I love this track. I think basically after this little glitchy part, the rest of the track is just fantastic. I love the kind of clappy, snappy snare you have too. I think it sounds really good. But yeah, really fantastic work here. Sounds really, really good. Sweet. So I believe at this point we've gotten through all the songs on the spreadsheet. So if anybody has a track, is just joining us and wants to share that track, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat, and that'll take you to the spreadsheet. That spreadsheet is how you send me the thing you're working on. And then I'll take a listen to them. And also at this point, if you already sent in a track and you want to send another one, you're also welcome to do that. And big thanks to everybody who's already shared a track. Without you guys, the stream isn't really anything. So I appreciate you guys showing up in here and sharing your music. I also got a little announcement. I will be not available for streaming on Monday next week, so no office hours stream on Monday. However, the Tuesday Patreon stream and the Wednesday feedback stream will be happening as normal next week, just so you guys know. but it looks like it's going to be a little bit of a slow week on the song feedback side of things. But if anybody is just joining us and would like to send a track, I've already said this a million times, but you never know who it just got here. You can click on the spreadsheet and that'll take you to the place where you send me your track. So I will hang out for a little while longer and see if anybody else pops in with a track in the next few minutes. But you guys are also more than welcome to ask any questions you might have, or just kind of hang out with me otherwise in general. No worries, Greg. Take your time. Like I said, I'm not really in any hurry to go anywhere. The stream usually goes for another hour or so after this anyways, so I'll be here. I was working on the new video for tomorrow. It's going to be about collision. So if there's any collision fans around, I'll be talking about everything about collision. Hopefully you guys are having a lovely afternoon, evening time, afternoon, nighttime, morning time, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Yeah, that's why I have collision open in the background here. Hello, Jay. How you doing today? We are just waiting for some people to pop in some more songs into the spreadsheet. So if you want to send me a track, you can click on the link up at the top of the chat. That'll take you to the spreadsheet, and then you just link somewhere I can stream it. So it can be in SoundCloud, Google Drive, wherever I can stream it. So that way I don't have to download any files. I do not want to have to download files from strangers on the internet. So a lot of people will end up just uploading their song as a private SoundCloud, and then you can send me the link to the private SoundCloud thing, and or you can do Google Drive, whatever works for you. Well, Jay, the whole point is works in progress are highly encouraged here. So it does not need to be a finished track. In fact, I would encourage you guys to share things that aren't finished. And that way you can actually go back and take the feedback that you receive and tweak it a little bit. In fact, one of the things I generally recommend for people is not just in the case of this stream, but anytime you're showing work to people, like don't be afraid to share work that like is early in the production stage, like when it's still like kind of like in its awkward growing phase. And that's a great time to get feedback because you can go lots of different directions with it. As your song gets closer and closer to being finished, you're less likely to be able to like incorporate and kind of switch things up on a track you're working on. So I know it's really scary to kind of share your ugly song babies, but it's a really helpful thing to do in a lot of cases. Perfect. That's what I want. I want to see these awkward song babies. I used to notice this. I used to notice this a lot when I was teaching lots of classes in person. When we would do song showcase days, people would only want to share the the perfect final version of the thing they've been working on. But that's not nearly as interesting as hearing it in progress, I think, at least in terms of like a learning experience. It's like it's much more vulnerable to share a work in progress than it is to share a finished track, I think, even though it's still vulnerable to share a finished product in a lot of cases. All right, still waiting for tracks. People are bouncing stuff. People get them ready. And just so you guys know, I am here every Wednesday giving feedback. So feel free to pop in anytime. Also, I want to mention this in the middle of the stream because I always mention it at the start of the stream. If you can't make it to a Wednesday feedback stream, I use the same spreadsheet every single week. And so you can you can put something in the spreadsheet whenever you want, and then it will just be in there. So on Wednesdays, I'll go through it kind of as I receive them. So if you can't make it to a live stream, you can always check it out kind of whenever you want. All right, let me fix that. All right, next track coming up. All right, here we got a track from Greg. Nice. That was super cool. It kind of has, it's kind of like shoegaze meets Pink Floyd kind of thing going on here, which I think is really cool. So yeah, so really solid use of reverbs. I feel like, you know, you went over the top on the reverbs, but that felt very much intentional. I felt like that was kind of like the goal of the whole thing, is to create this very kind of like washy, dreamy, reverby kind of just atmosphere for things to float in. And I think you accomplished that goal pretty well. I think in terms of things you might want to take a look at, this seems intentional, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this. Your drums feel very distant to the point where they feel almost negligible. Like they're there and they're creating like some kind of rhythmic element here. But they're not really impactful to the rest of the song. And so I'm wondering if you might be interested in taking the creative choice of either making them more present in the song and more giving the song more of a rhythmic element, or maybe even getting rid of them and just making the song just like a more ambient kind of thing. Either way could be totally fine. Up to you. I'll let you figure it out. One of the cool benefits of making the drums a little bit more present is you could sidechain some of the reverbs to your kick, and that way you get these big, you know, atmospheric sounds that you have. They're also kind of like pulsing a little bit with the rhythm, and that can be a really fun way to add a little bit more kind of like dynamic texture to your song. So think about that as a potential option. I really like the vocals. The vocals sound really cool. Again, perfect for that dreamy atmosphere. However, it sounded like there were a few points in here where some of your like S's and T's, you're getting some of these like kind of sounds that were hitting the reverb and then creating reverbs based off of that. And that I think was not quite as enjoyable. So one of the things you might want to do is use like either like a de-esser or just edit out some of those sounds. And that way they don't get picked up by the reverb and then carried on for a really long time. I'll see if I can find it as I kind of jump through a little bit, but there's a few different moments. I think there's at least once or twice over here and at least once over twice over here where you're getting these kind of like SE kind of sounds in the reverb, which was not the most pleasant experience. Other than that, like right there is a good example. You can hear it right at like 147. There's another one right there. So maybe see if you can edit those out unless you like them. I guess I feel like one of my things I'd really love to hear in here is something a little bit more melodic. You're using all these different kind of cascading synth layers in a really nice way together. But having a melody besides the one that's kind of arpeggiating could be a really nice way to add a little bit more character to this track. And then you have this kind of area over here where it kind of settles in this very ambient space. I felt like this section felt a little bit too empty to me. So maybe another layer in here. This might be a good place to pop in that, you know, melody I just mentioned. Something else going on here, because right now I feel like this goes on for a long time without really doing a whole lot until the new arpeggiated synth comes in, until this guy comes in. So you got about like 30 seconds in there that are kind of just like, I don't know, maybe that's what you want, just the kind of like that floating airy space. But I think there's room to toss some things in there if you want. And then the last section, I think it's kind of cool. But again, some kind of melodic element here. If you wanted to go harder into the Pink Floyd kind of influence that I'm hearing here, some guitar could be really cool as a way to expand upon some of the kind of soundscape you have going on. And like the climax layer, I think this works really well. I said, really cool structure, really cool song. A lot of really nice elements of atmosphere in here. I think it just needs a little bit more of like a backbone, like a melody, a little bit more drums in there to kind of like tighten it up a bit and give it some more different things for the listener to kind of grab onto. But I like your use of reverbs. I like the use of all the elements you have going on. I just want a couple more things happening, and I think that'll be really fantastic. Chat, any thoughts, comments, questions, ideas? Feel free to let us know. All feedback here, it is highly encouraged to give feedback out to other people while you're here. Because my feedback might not be the only feedback or the best feedback. Other people might have opinions about what to do here. And once again, we are all caught up on the songs in the spreadsheet. So if you would like to send in a track, now would be a good time to do so, because you will be immediately next. If not, no worries. I appreciate you guys coming by and hanging out. I'll probably hang out for a few more minutes and see if anybody else pops in a track. No worries. No rush. I will definitely hang out for a while if people are getting their tracks exported and uploaded and all that stuff. Yeah, I could hear there being like a bigger sub bass on there with Jay. I don't think it's totally necessary, but I would definitely could hear that working in a track like this. And if you are just joining us and would like to send in a track, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat. And that's how you send me your song. All right, looks like we got a track from Plus Ultra Mix. Jay, is this you? Nice. Overall, I think it sounds pretty good. To me, it feels like the vocal samples are just kind of like all over the place. And it's kind of like you're just hitting the audience with lots of different samples. And I think that can work. And I think in this one, it sounds a little bit too chaotic for me personally. I think the actual beat itself sounds really solid. I think like the actual rhythm, like it definitely works. And I'm not sure the vocal samples really mesh well with the piano. Like I feel like that they're kind of two different things. I do really like the cowbell, and I do really like the bass line. Like this feels like one song. And then when the piano comes in, it feels like a different song. Yeah, I think if you dialed back a lot of the vocals and then you swapped up that piano for something a little different, I could get really into this. I think it's partially just because like a lot of the vocals have a bit more of like a darker feel to it, and then the piano part has this very kind of like light and happy and upbeat feel to it. So I think those are kind of my main issues there. A little bit too much of the vocals, and then the piano, I'm just feeling like it just doesn't quite fit there. Yeah, I don't necessarily mind when people have like songs that do very different things all at once. But I think the different sections, you still want to try to make sure they are complementing each other. But yeah, chat, thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Sweet. So next up, we got a track from Dancing Madly Backwards on SoundCloud. And it's Trail Doggy on YouTube. Just because this song is 7.5 minutes long, usually if songs are more than like 5 minutes, just let you know, I might jump around a little bit. Jay, for your song, I think one of the best tricks for making something not sound repetitive is to just create lots of variation. Like, I made a video about drums a while back where I talk about like, all right, you know, start with the drum beat, you know, start with the loop, and then make like 8 different versions of that loop. And then do the same thing for melody. Start with one melody and then make 8 variations on that melody. So instead of writing 8 different melodies, you start with one melody and then you do a minor variation number 1, minor variation number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. And that gives you a lot more content to jump back and forth between that's all kind of similar, but also not the exact same thing. So whenever I'm running into issues of things sounding and feeling too repetitive, is make minor changes on what you got and then mix and match the different variations together till you find a combination you like. I think it's probably the easiest way to approach that. I'm already digging it. it's super dope, but I'm gonna jump around a little bit. So yeah, that was really awesome. I very much enjoyed that. Wonderful use of noise, wonderful use of distortion. Love the big fat beat that comes in. Lots of variety, doing different things. Each section felt like it all kind of fit together, but also felt unique at the same time. It kind of reminds me of a weird mixture of the Merzbow and Alec Empire Live album. I think it's just live at CBGB's. If you haven't listened to that album and if you enjoyed this song, check out Merzbow and Alec Empire at CBGB's. Kind of fits in that world as well. I would also recommend checking out the album by Vessel that came out a couple years ago. I think it's called Queen of Golden Dogs. Also kind of fits this world where it's like big, heavy rhythmic elements, but also just like lots of chaos and weirdness and noise going on. So yeah, really fantastic work. Really digging it. In terms of things that you might want to consider for this track, one, I do think it could be a little bit shorter. I think you could probably accomplish a very similar results in terms of what your audience experiences in about 5 minutes as opposed to 7.5. If you feel hardcore set to 7.5, go for it. I do feel like the intro could have been a little bit shorter, as well as some of the sections in the middle, but that's up to you. Yeah, check out both those albums. They're both really, really good. Other than that, I do feel like a lot of times when the beat is feeling really strong, the whole song sounded really good. Like when it first comes in over here. Like when you go from this to this, the beat sounds really good and the whole thing grooves really hard. And then you add in a bunch of other layers and you kind of lose the beat a little bit. So I would recommend side chaining a lot of your noisy layers to your kick, and that way your kick punches through the mix a bit more, and that'll keep giving it that kind of like big, heavy rhythm that it sounds like you're going for. But those are basically the two big things I would really take a look into is tighten up the arrangement a little bit if you want, and make your kick shine through a little bit more by side chaining maybe not all of the elements, but a bunch of these elements to your kick, and that way it'll punch through the mix a bit more and just maintain that big kind of powerful impact. Other than that, like I said, everything sounds really cool. Lots of cool diversity here. Love the distortion. Yeah, like these parts all sound really cool. Yeah, and I think song structure is particularly difficult for this style of music, right? A lot of times when you are you're going for the more experimental thing, a lot of the rules don't apply, and you don't have necessarily good examples to build off, right? If you're making pop music, there's lots of examples of pop song structures, whereas something like this, it's whatever you want it to be, right? I think overall the song structure worked pretty well. It just felt a little bit too long, I think. But I know for this style of music, this length of a song is not that unusual. So I think you might be fine here. But for me, I'll maybe, cut maybe a minute to a minute and a half off if you can. But yeah, that's what I'm feeling about this track. I really like it. I like that we're getting some cool, interesting, noisy stuff on the channel, which is awesome. Cool, chat. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Sweet. So it looks like we got a couple new tracks in here. I'm gonna jump to the next one. Happy Feet, it looks like you uploaded a track, but I need access to it. So you might need to set it up so that anybody with the link can access it. Happy Feet, while you are getting that link fixed up, we're going to jump to the track from Ambient Cloud. Nice. This is pretty cool. It definitely has this like 90s house kind of feel to it. There's like 90s ravish like UK house kind of feel, which is like cool. It's like a classic throwback kind of feel to it. Overall, once again, the synth work is fantastic. So you can hear similarities in some of the synth sounds to the track you played earlier. I feel like the two places where this track could use a little bit of love is number one, the bass line. I like that kind of plucky FM bass line. It's like such a classic sound. But it feels a little bit thin. It's very kind of mid-rangey. And I think if you were to layer it up with another sound playing something basically the same but an octave lower and a bit louder, you'd get a much more kind of like beefier low end to it, which, you know, if you want to play this in a club or, you know, you want people to go out and dance to it, you got to make sure that that bass hits really hard. And right now it's like it's the right sound, it just needs to be thicker and bigger. Other than that, my other kind of like main issue is I like what you're doing with the drums. It's like this very kind of like classic house music kind of style percussion, which if you're doing it as an homage, if you're doing it as a like kind of as a kind of reference to these kind of like classic house songs, it's kind of cool. But it does sound a little bit dated compared to what people are doing now. So I think, you know, if you're doing something like this, you want to kind of figure out like what inspiration are you grabbing from those old school house songs, and then what inspiration are you grabbing from modern house music sounds, right? And to me, the drums do a really good job of referencing that kind of old school percussion style, but it does sound a little bit dated. So up to you where you want to fit with that. But I think you're doing a good job of kind of like referencing those things. But I think that you could also modernize it a little bit and make them a little bit more powerful and maybe tweak them a little bit. Other than that, I like the vocals a lot, and I think we can do a little bit more with the vocals. Number one, they're a little bit quiet. Yeah, they're a bit quiet, and I think they could be a bit more kind of central to the mix, not only by making them louder, but maybe adding a few other layers. One of the things that's really nice with vocal samples like this, where they're kind of like pitched up and kind of like more atmospheric vocal layers, is to do like a call and response. So you have like one vocal layer says one thing and a different vocal layer says another thing, and they kind of go back and forth. That could be a really cool thing you could look into for this track. The rest of it's really cool. You have this like big white noise background sound. I think that could maybe be a little bit quieter, but other than that, I'm really digging it. It's cool to like hear somebody doing this kind of like throwback house music kind of thing you got going on here. Sweet. Yeah, chat. Any thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Let us know. Chat's been fairly quiet on giving feedback, so I'm expecting you guys to give more feedback for each other. Sweet. So next up, we got a track from Happy Feet, I believe. Nice. That was quite a journey you took us on there. Um, Really cool track here. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of different layers. I feel like I've got some interesting feedback here, but I think overall, like it has this nice kind of like Daft Punky kind of mix of like a little bit of like classical music with a little bit of this kind of like houseier, synthier parts. Um, but I want to take a look at a few things here. So first off, I don't think you should lead in with the kick and the clap. I think it's just too much. So start with just the piano, or maybe the piano plus one other thing, and then bring in the other parts later. On top of that, one of the big pieces of feedback I give all the time, it comes down to drum sample selection. You know, picking which kick drum you're going to use and picking which snare drum you use or clap or whatever is really, really important. And I feel like this clap sound you're using is not really doing it for me. So I would try maybe swapping that out and then maybe turning it down a little bit because it comes in real strong here. And I think like let that piano like have its moment to shine. The other big thing that I noticed here has to do with some of your arrangement. It sounds like what you're doing is you're starting with, you know, 3 sounds. You're starting with piano, kick, snare. And then you bring in one more sound. And then a few bars later, you bring in another sound. And then a few bars later, you bring in another sound. And I think that can work as an arrangement choice. I think you might be better off bringing in sounds or taking out sounds in groups. So instead of adding one new sound, you add like 2 or 3 new sounds at a time. And that way you have like first section gets the focus kind of on the piano. And then next section gets the focus on like piano plus a couple other things. And the next section gets to focus on piano plus synths and or whatever. So try that out as you're going through your arrangement. Instead of adding things, building up one at a time, try adding things and then as a couple things at a time, or taking things out as a couple of time, or a combination of the two. Like 2 new sounds come in and 1 sound goes away. And that's a cool way to make it feel like each section feels distinct and on its own, as opposed to just kind of like the same thing building up and up and up. Other than that, the other big thing I think you're gonna have to watch out for is there are a number of places where your piano starts to do more complicated stuff, but there's a lot of synth layers happening at the same time. And so it's almost too complex for me to really pay attention to either the piano or the synth. Let me see if I can find a spot where that's happening. Like here's fine because the piano and the synths are not super complex yet. But here, as the piano gets more complicated and the synths get more complicated, it ends up sounding a little bit cluttered, right? So as a listener, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be focusing on. Am I supposed to be focusing on the piano sound? Am I supposed to be focusing on the synth sound? They're both important sounds in the song, but they're competing with each other. So I think you're gonna have to make some choices here. And I think the way I would approach it if it were me is I want you to have, I would have certain sections of the song where the piano is the main focus and the synth parts are gonna be more simple. And then other sections of the song, I'm going to take out the piano entirely as the synth gets more complicated. Here's another example. Yeah, same thing here. There's synth and piano, they're competing. So in this section, let the synth be the main part and just delete the piano altogether. And then later on in the song, you have another section where it's mostly piano with like maybe a couple of supporting parts from the synth. That's the big thing. If you can figure out that balance between the two, it'll make your life a lot easier when it comes to mixing this and getting your whole arrangement to be put together. Because I love the synth parts here, but the piano is getting in the way. And you know, another big thing I talk a decent amount on these streams is when it comes to arrangement, you know, less is more in a lot of cases, right? Deleting things and removing things from your arrangement can be painful, but it can be a really powerful way to make it so you can hear everything a bit better. But those are my main pieces of feedback here. I like what the synths are doing a lot. This part works pretty well because again, there's not a huge amount going on with the synth, so the piano works with it. The piano can definitely be louder though. Maybe a little bit less delay on that sound. Yeah, same thing here. Too much piano and synth at the same time. Yeah, there's going to be like, so your break section here, maybe this is where you get more complex and fancy with your piano because it has a time to shine, right? And then in the main synthy parts, you get rid of the piano altogether. But like I said, overall, really cool work here. I think it works really well all together. It's just trying to make sure that those two kind of competing melodic elements can either coexist together or have their own sections. I think will help the whole song feel like it fits together a lot better. So yeah, so hopefully that's useful. Hopefully that's helpful information for you. Really nice work though on overall, just like the vibe of this track sounds really awesome. Sweet. So at this point, I believe we have once again gotten through all of the songs in the spreadsheet, and I think I'm gonna call the stream here. So once again, big thank you guys for showing up, sending me tracks. That makes the whole thing worthwhile, in my opinion. I will not be here on Monday for the normal office hours. Excuse me. I will not be here on Monday for the normal office hours stream, but I will be back on Tuesday for a Patreon stream. So if you're a Patreon member, Tuesday stream as normal. And then, of course, I will be back on Wednesday for another song feedback stream, like I am here every week. So once again, thank you guys for popping by. Feel free to hit the like button, all that kind of stuff. If you want to help support the channel, you can also check out the Patreon. Yeah, and then I got a new video coming tomorrow. I got a half-hour video talking about collision, which is one of my favorite instruments in live. So keep an eye out for that as well. Yeah, really cool tracks today. I'm liking the diversity of sounds we're getting. I'm liking all the styles we're getting. So it's really awesome to hear what you guys are working on. So I will look forward to hopefully seeing you guys either Monday or Tuesday. Have a good weekend, and I will see you guys next week.